Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Dhammaya.
Namo Dhammaya.
Namo Sanghaya.
Namo Sanghaya.
Namo Namah.
Namo
So good evening, everyone. Welcome to Dharma Night. I know some of you are here for the first time, so warm welcome to you. My name's Satyadasa, and as Kusalasara said, we're going to be doing our usual program, which is a meditation in the first half, a tea break, and then Kusalasara is going to be talking to us in the second half. And so we're online, aren't we? So hello to people who are watching online as well. So we are looking at this, we're exploring this figure of the Refuge Tree, which, you know, on the one hand I have to admit might seem like rather an alien sort of image to some of you. It's a big image. It's got lots going on it, so do come in. Yeah, do take a look at it. This is one of the more literal sort of pictures of the Refuge Tree, in the way that it's quite sort of definite in its representation of all the characters, so it's quite a lot of detail on it. There's a number of different representations, and Dave Hiril on Tech can post one to YouTube that are a bit more suggestive, a bit more sort of less sort of flat and solid than this one. This is a very good one, though, to see what's going on the Refuge Tree. You can really see it all. And last week, Jnanavachi was giving us a tour of the Refuge Tree in general, sort of picking up some of the things that we might not notice, like the blue sky and the lotuses and this rainbow cloud at the bottom. And what they are suggestive of is that this is something that arises out of in our imagination. Yeah. This is an image which we can conjure in our imagination, and that's what the practice of the Refuge Tree is all about. But as Jnanavachi was saying, sometimes we have this idea that what's real is maybe factual or physical, or can be described in terms of maths or matter. And when it comes to images, culturally, and I'll speak for myself, certainly, you know, I can go with images up to a point, but there's a point where I think, images are not really real, so, you know, it's nice. It's a nice thing to do. But when we do our meditation, I'm really going to encourage you to open up to the images, not all the images on that, but just the image of the blue sky. And notice that what we can do is we can really let images into us more and more. Even the image of a lotus, so there's lotuses on there. That speaks to some people. I mean, it might be that that's just the image of whiteness or purity or something beautiful, you know, that like something radiant. There's images are to be sort of practiced with and really let in. And so that's what we'll do. We'll meditate. We'll do the mindfulness of breathing. We won't just sit there meditating on the blue sky, although we could try that, I suppose. See how we get. The blue sky usually gets interrupted with all kinds of other things, doesn't it? So we'll do the mindfulness of breathing, and then in the second half, Kusalasara is going to be talking to us about the figures who are sort of nearest to us, at least. It's not obvious that they're completely nearest to us. They're sort of on the front lotus at the bottom. The teachers of the present. This is how this lineage has come to us. So this image is an image of the particular moment that we're at when when the Dharma has been taught in, from countless generations, well, not countless actually, quite a number of generations, 2,500 years, it's been taught in all kinds of different cultures. It's had many, many forms, and in a way the main forms of Buddhism are all represented on that tree, and it's coming now forward into a new culture, you could say. This is Buddhism coming to the West. It's come to the West only relatively recently in historical terms. 70 years maybe, that amount of time that it's been more seriously, widely known and practiced in the West. So these characters we're going to hear about this evening are called the Teachers of the Present. None of them are actually alive. So the present is not exactly the present, but it's compared to the rest of the tree. So I won't say any more about that. We'll look forward to that. So let's set up and we'll meditate, and we'll do the mindfulness of breathing. As we start, we can just open up to the sense of space that's present. It might just be that means we feel our minds fizzing around and racing. And we feel a general tiredness in the body or the tensions of the day. It's not a process of narrowing, it's a process of broadening. Just allowing awareness to encompass the physical sense of the body just now. Probably have a subtle image of the body in the mind as contacting the feelings in the feet and the legs, shins and knees and making the connection with the cushion or the chair. Just allowing your body to take up its full weight. Noticing any holding in the midriff or in the shoulders. Giving some attention to the sensations in the scalp, the forehead, around the eyes. In the Zen tradition, they say body like a mountain. We sit with the body like a mountain. And the heart like an ocean, including feeling, mood, the expansive or the contracted. And the mind like the sky. So in the image of the refuge tree, the sky is all around, on all sides, above, below, behind, in front. This blue sky goes right through us, it's inside us. It can coexist with our bodies and our physical sense and our emotional sense. It's just a blue, open, vibrant, sky. And there's that sense that there's no edges to awareness, there's no edges to the sky. It has this boundless quality. And within that, allow the breath, the flow of the breath to emerge into the center of awareness. It's already there. Picking up on the flow of the breath within this expanded blue sky. The mindfulness of breathing. if you wish to, bring back the image of the blue sky. The blue sky in the breath, the blue sky in the body, the blue sky all around. for the final period. Just opening up again to the blue sky. The blue sky is this ungraspable quality of mind. So we can notice the holding on and trying to arrange experience, and we do this even when we meditate, but the blue sky speaks of something beyond all of that, which we can only really receive. So when you're ready to go through and have some tea, and we'll come back in here just after past, or yep. I'm going to stay put and say hello to the people online. So yeah, hi. Got 40 or so people from various parts. Sherry Putta from India. And hello Robert and Chris. Paul from a bit nearer to us. Do feel free to put any thoughts, any questions, how you're getting on with this. If you listened last week, anything you've been thinking about from None of Archer's talk, or your meditation just now, be good to hear how you're getting on. Thank you, Wendy. Glad you enjoyed the meditation. Yeah, how was the blue sky? Sometimes I find it just doesn't go in any of these images. They just sort of remain a bit, just me thinking about the blue, but not really much more than that, which can be nice in itself, even just thinking about blue. But then sometimes you can get an actual feeling of what blue is, or what sky is, or whatever the image is. Hippily, I wonder if you could get me the announcement sheet. That would be good. Yeah. Yeah, well, the blue sky is rather cloudy, isn't it? Very often. It's kind of like I find it helpful to say, okay, the mind can be cloudy, and that doesn't mean that you can't imagine the blue sky even there with the cloudiness. Which is like interfusing the image of the blue sky into whatever is actually there, rather than kind of waiting for the moment to introduce the blue sky. We had a lot of blue sky today, didn't we? I think, yeah, in London anyway. Don't know where you are from, Wendy. Thanks. We've got a couple of courses coming up, one of which is on Zoom, so I think you'll be able to join that, even if you can't get to the LBC. One is called Awakening Creativity, that's running from the 18th of November, which is a week on Thursday, I think. And that says it's about exploring drawing as a gateway to creativity through meditation and simple drawing exercises, and that's suitable for anyone. So you're welcome to join that, and it's nice to maybe do it at home, because you can just sort of draw in the privacy of your own room and not worry about the results. So that's actually probably a lovely thing to do together on Zoom with other people. Lucy says, I've been meditating for a few years, but am new to Dharma. What is it exactly? Thank you for the meditation. What is Dharma? Dharma means has various meanings. It's a Sanskrit word, so it either means the teachings of the Buddha, so that could be the teachings of the historical Buddha, or it could be the teachings of enlightened beings, as that's come down through the ages. So it's the teaching, it's the content. That is the pointing in Buddhism. It's a pointing. All the words, all the images, all the ways of communicating are all pointings towards the other meaning of the word Dharma, which is the the essence of the awakened mind. So it's the actual, I was going to say experience, but it's even more than that. It's the awakened mind itself, rather than the teachings that point to it. So the Dharma has these two meanings, both the teachings and the goal, if you like. And that's one of the three jewels of Buddhism. The other two being sort of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. They're the three jewels. But the Dharma's a vast topic, and it does have other meanings. But when we say Dharma, that's mainly what we mean. Yeah, Chris says that he imagines the blue sky. The mind is like the blue sky with clouds that obscure the true nature of it. The clouds being thoughts. Yeah, I mean, sometimes we can kind of imagine, and I suspect there's truth in this, that there is a state that's without thought, and that is a lovely state to experience. And we know what it's like to be completely, clotted up with thoughts and kind of overthinking and over-analysing and all of that, and sort of replaying events, second-guessing ourselves, getting in a tangle. But I think it's possible to, think and have thoughts with a spacious awareness, and possibly not to, too much get into a dichotomy of thoughts and no thoughts. But yes, that's a good idea, that there's a kind of a nature of mind that is greater than merely our thinking, and it's usually the way that we're identifying with the thinking and kind of getting caught up in a certain layer of kind of responses to our own thinking, and taking our own thinking very literally, taking it just really getting locked into small circles. So to have an awareness that there are fields beyond our thinking, and that's always there, is a very helpful way of thinking. It's another way of thinking. It's hard to get away from thinking. So we've got this Awakening Creativity course. That's only 3 weeks, and it's, as I say, it starts next week. You can sign up for that on Zoom. Hyrule probably can post something about that, but it's all on the LondonBuddhistCentre.com. It's led by Amita Jyoti, who's an order member here at the LBC, and she is a great artist. I'm sure you can check out some of her work as well. Radical Dharma course is only in person, yes. So that's not going to be happening, I don't even think, in a hybrid way. So you'd have to be here for that. And then we've got the winter retreat. I understand that's pretty much booked up. Booked up for the second part. So the second part is the 27th to the 1st. That's done. You could get on the waiting list for that. But the first half, I think there's still some spaces. And for the 10 days. So the 10-day option is still available, I think. And that's at Adhisthana. If you don't know where that is, it's in Herefordshire. It's near a range of hills called the Malverns. Yeah, it's a beautiful spot. Yeah, thoughts are not necessarily reality, Chris. I mean, that's one of the amazing. It's a very simple idea, isn't it? That thoughts are not reality, but it's sort of so easy to. And we know that, don't we? We know that thoughts are not reality, but they kind of assume a lot of our attention in a kind of. We believe in them in some big way, but so much that's important to us isn't isn't to do with our thoughts entirely, and thoughts are kind of, the image of the tree is an image of something where the truth or the reality that's being expressed is beyond and behind the image. So you have an image, but it's always an image that's pointing to something, and then words in that sense are images as well. Words are metaphors. Most, in a broadest sense, all words point beyond themselves. What they point at is a mystery. Even a simple thing like a cup or whatever, you could sort of analyze that, and you wouldn't even find the cup. I mean, I don't want to get into philosophy, and Jnanavachar's talk last week was all about this, his cup that broke. It's a great talk. It's, if you want to catch up with the series. So yeah, the winter retreat is suitable for people who are new to practice, in your first couple of years of practice, or you've not been on a Tree Ratna retreat. They're really they're convivial. They're not. In some retreats, you might have an image of being very austere and not kind of communicating a lot with other people, and there are periods of silence, and there is a chance to really go in and take time for yourself and go on walks by yourself and kinds of things like that. But it's a very communal experience retreat, and it's got a lot of the joy and a lot of the things that people really enjoy about that is the commonality, the common feeling that you get, and you sharing with others. Just, even if it's just sharing meals and all the things that you have to do on retreat to keep the retreat running, that could become a source of as much joy and delight as the meditation. And all of the things that you do on retreat all fit together. Sometimes you think it's just about meditating, but actually it's relatively small periods of the day in relation to the whole day when you're actually meditating. But there is quite a lot of that for sure. Hiro, is the Radical Dharma open online? Is it an online thing? I think it's in person. That's it. I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, it's just in person.
So if you have any questions, the last chance to ask any questions about the Refuge Tree, anything that's not clear, because I'm aware that some people, just tuned in, and there's an image of the Refuge Tree that has been posted, or should have been posted. Harold, have you posted it? Yes, it's up there, up in the chat. Check that out, because that's what we're going to be talking about. Kusalasara is going to be talking to us in about 10 minutes about that. But if you've got any general questions or any specific questions, do fire away. Just looking at what we've got behind us. Where is it? That wonderful stupa there. These are, just in case it's not clear what these are stupas that contain the ashes of people order members who've died, and forget who that is, that colourful one behind me. So Pete asks, have you ever met a person you felt was truly enlightened? I guess it takes one to know one. And in that sense I haven't met a truly enlightened person. But who I felt was truly enlightened? No, I have not felt that. If you put it as truly enlightened, it depends how high you set that bar. I've certainly met people who I recognise have a kind of a quality which is much more sort of like, so that I feel greatly affected by meeting them. I feel like it's like their way of being, or their presence, their person has a quality to it into which I start to feel different. And I have met people who I sincerely respect for that. And I try not to worry too much about whether they are enlightened or not, although it is an interesting question. And it's actually not, I don't put it like that. I might start thinking about how advanced they are in a particular way, but I don't know whether I would put the bar as high as enlightened. I have met people who I definitely would look up to, and I can certainly say that about some of the people I've met through Triratna and the founder Sangharakshita. I met him on a number of occasions, and I've met people who I haven't known quite so well or known quite so much about, who have also impressed me in various ways, but whether they're enlightened or not is not easy for me to say. Chris says he feels that Thich Nhat Hanh is enlightened. I have seen him talk, and many people feel that way about Thich Nhat Hanh. There was Sangharakshita tells a story about his, I think it's called, a kind of silent sage in India in the 1950s. Was it? I'm going to get his name wrong. Do you know I'm talking about, Hyrule? Who really didn't speak much at all, and people would just sit around him and take what's called darshan, like just being with him was the practice. He spent years not speaking, as far as I know. He's very, very famous. That's why I can't remember his name now. Not Ramana Maharshi or something like that. Is that somebody else? Yeah, I think that was it. That's a good question, Wendy. Do Triratna recognize the Dalai Lama? You put that in inverted commas, so I'm not sure what you mean by sort of recognize. We're not a Tibetan tradition, so therefore he's not part of our tradition, or we're not part of his tradition. There are Tibetans on the Refuge Tree, and we're going to hear about some of those Tibetan figures who may well have had the Dalai Lama in their Sangha or in their own practice. Not all Tibetans would have done. So we're kind of connected to the Dalai Lama, and connected to through the images on the people in the Refuge Tree that you'll be hearing about this evening. I certainly, myself, speaking personally, do feel great kind of reverence towards the Dalai Lama and feel a great affection for him, as many people who are Buddhists and non-Buddhists all around the world do. So, in that sense, I sort of recognise the Dalai Lama. Thanks, Ramana Maharshi, Cedric. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to just pop out to the other room and get myself a quick cuppa. I hope all that talk about enlightened beings has warmed us up for the talk. We'll be back in 5 minutes or so with that. Thanks.
Do I have to press the button? Okay. Okay, yeah, so really warm welcome. I'm Kusalasara, and this is just the second week where we're exploring this fairly esoteric image actually of a refuge tree. A refuge tree is an image that's used particularly in Tibetan Tantric Buddhism, and it comes in many, many forms. And this is the refuge tree of our particular movement. The refuge tree comes with a whole set of practices, which we're not going to do. You need to be one needs to be taught the practices, and we do those practices when we're training for ordination and also when we're ordained to the movement. But we're not about to learn the practice of the refuge tree, but what this image allows us to talk to you about the lineage of inspiration, which is the theme of this series, and what that means is talking about what dharmic resources we draw upon in our own practice and that our teacher has given us. So I thought I would just stand up and point a little bit, as soon as we've got this nice image here. So today it's the teachers of the present, so called, and those are these guys here. So there's 9 of them. And in the centre here, we have our teacher, Bhante Sangharakshita. And then around him are his 8 main teachers that he has talked extensively about in his memoirs. And maybe just a couple more things to say about the image as a whole. This is an old image. It's just a print, I think. And we have now added two more figures. So here and here, there are 2 figures, Dharmapala and Dr. Ambedkar, who are both really, really important to our movement. So this is a slightly incomplete image, but that's not particularly relevant to what we're talking about today. I thought I would mention that. Yeah, so maybe just to start with, the refuge tree is a symbol for growth. That's at the heart what the refuge tree is. It's a lotus tree. I've never seen such a thing, but that's what this is, and it's a symbol for growth, which is important just to bear that in mind in relation to everything that we talk about. And these sort of lotus platforms contain teachers from different aspects of reality, I suppose. Essential, we have Shakyamuni Buddha. We've got teachers from the archetypal realm. We've got historical teachers, and we've got the Buddha's immediate disciples as well. So an array of teachers, and less easy to spot, but behind Shakyamuni Buddha is a pile of Dharma texts as well. So we've got the Dharma texts. And so these are potent symbols that we can reflect on as we get to know what they all mean. But anyway, so today we're talking about the teachers of the present. They're called the teachers of the present because they used to be, when this refuge tree was first created, many of them were alive, but that's no longer the case. The most recent person who died is our own teacher, Bhante Sangharakshita, and within my lifetime a few of the others have been alive, and many people will have met some of the teachers, many other order members, etc. And there's a particular quality, isn't there, about a teacher who one has met, a teacher that one can actually talk to. So maybe I would just start today with a question. And what is the point of having a Dharma teacher, a teacher of Buddhism, when we can look at YouTube videos, we can read more than any other Buddhist culture that's ever manifested on this planet. We've got access to more teachings than anyone, so we can read to our heart's delight. We can listen to Headspace apps. So why would we be interested in what a Buddhist teacher has to offer when there's more convenient ways to engage with the Dharma? Any thoughts? Yeah, Annie?
I would think precisely because of the fact that there's such a wealth of resources available, having a teacher in whom you place your trust, who can guide you on where to kind of focus your attention, I think is really useful.
Yeah, that's really good. So you need a guide. That's a really nice way, a guide through, and a nice idea there as well of needing to focus our attention on one thing and not sort of get lost in the forest of Buddhist texts. Yeah, great. So a guide and someone to help us focus. Yeah, Alice.
It's going to make you say, "Oh shucks." It's the way they are. It's to me, the first thing I notice is that the people here are good people. It's a noticeable thing, and it's the way, so that it comes before you start to learn about it. It's there, and that's what that you're not going to get from a book. A book is not another human being.
Yeah. So that's the main point. I think that's the main point that we're exploring today. So what has somebody, an alive person, got that we can absorb from, and that's their presence, isn't it? Their presence, or exemplification, someone who you can look to and see your values more embodied than one is able to embody them oneself, if that makes sense. So you've got someone who's further along the path, who is on the same path that you wish to be on, that we're all on, the Buddhist path. We've got someone further along, and they're embodying those values. So it's how they act, it's how they speak, it's how they interact with other people. It's their way of being. And Bhante talks about exemplification. So perhaps we can delve more into this. I'm going to read some of my source material. So these, as far as I know, are not they're not in the bookshop anyway. They might not be in print anymore. So this one's called Precious Teachers, and it's a memoir really of some of the time that Bhante spent in Kalimpong, which I'll talk a bit more about that later, and some anecdotes and stories about some of his teachers. So I've been reading this, and then this book's called The Teachers Enlightenment, and this is a particular guide to this refuge tree, and the characters, each character who's on the refuge tree is described in this book. So I've been looking at that, and I've also been reading some of other memoirs. And so this is Sangharakshita, Bhante Sangharakshita, on talking about his 8 teachers and his attitude to these 8 teachers. So he says, they were remarkable men. Besides being well versed in the traditions to which they belonged, they were men of deep spirituality, and I benefited greatly from their teaching and from the example they offered, in their different ways, of a life lived in accordance with the Dharma. Wherever I go, I shall carry with me the memory of their great kindness to me and to all who came within the magic circle of their influence. Like visions of a divinized humanity, they soared above the horizon of our petty earthly concerns. So I really like the magic circle of their influence, and I think that's what a really great teacher will manifest for sure. And also the fact that Bhante says, wherever I shall go, I shall carry with me the memory of their great kindness to me. And apparently in another interview, he said that he dreams of his teachers every single night. Well, he said that he dreamt of his teachers every single night. So that carrying with him was certainly apparent in his dream life. So who were these teachers and where did Bhante meet them? Well, he had one main root teacher, and that experience of that teacher led to Bhante meeting all of these other teachers. So he's got 6 Tibetan teachers, 1 Chinese teacher and 1 Indian teacher. And in the late 1940s, Bhante was in India, and he had met a great Indian scholar called Jagdash Kashyap, and Bhante decided to follow what Jagdash Kashyap had to any instructions that he had. So I think when we're talking about teachers, we're also talking about students or disciples, and how this communication can manifest. So Bhante was he was in India. He'd actually taken his first refuges, so he'd become officially publicly a Buddhist in London in 1944, which probably not that many people did that, but obviously it was possible. And just at the end of the war, he got sent to India and then left when the war had finally finished. He left the army, threw away his passport, I think he burned it, and wandered with his friend, wandered around India looking for ordination into Bhikkhu Sangha, looking for Buddhist teachers. You can read his memoirs, that there's an awful lot of information about that. So this was a young man in his early 20s when this happened. So he is on an extraordinary quest. Anyway, so many encounters later, he meets up with Jagdash Kashyap, who I will describe in a minute. He was a Pali scholar. He was very, very well respected. I can't see which one he is on the Refuge Tree. I might find out in a minute.
He's on Bhante's right.
He's on Bhante's right. Okay, yeah, that's right. On the front at the Bhante's right. Jagdash Kashyap was, very, very well respected, and he was working in a university. He was a Pali scholar. He knew a lot about Buddhist philosophy and the Abhidharma and many different things. And Bhante decided to take him as his teacher. And Bhante was preoccupied at the time. He realised that he still hadn't like completely broken through ego clinging. So he'd had a lot of realizations, the first of which happened when he was 16. But he was preoccupied with this idea of ego clinging. And he read that Trappist monks recommend one way to deal with the problem of the ego is to surrender completely to your spiritual superior. So can you imagine doing that? Can you imagine, is there anyone who you'd know who you would completely surrender your will to them, and for that to be a wholesome thing? You can just ask yourselves that question. So Bhante decided to do that with Jagdash Kashyap. Jagdash Kashyap. I'm going to get in a pickle saying all these names. Anyway, so he decided to surrender his will. And so he spent quite a bit of time with him, and they were decided to go on a little trip to Buddhist sites around Bihar, where the Buddha's main tramping ground was. So they went there together, and then they ended up in Kalimpong, which is in the Himalayas. Jagdish Kashyap was feeling very restless. He didn't know what to do with himself. And so he said to Bhante, just you stay here. I need to go to the forest and meditate and work out what to do. You stay here and work for the good of Buddhism. Okay, so that was his instruction. Pretty vague, but that's exactly what Bhante did. So he stayed in Kalimpong, and that led to all sorts of other things. He stayed in Kalimpong for 14 years, in fact. Obedient. So I'm going to describe each of the characters of Bhante's teachers as we're given them, just so that you can get a sense of them. Just one or two sentences. One of the things, when I read about Bhante's teachers, one of the things that really struck me was their individuality. And one of Bhante's main teachings is that the spiritual life will make you a true individual. Yeah, so the spiritual life is about developing true individuals who are not swayed by group norms. So they're not swayed by group norms. This is a very sort of simple way of describing it. Not caught up in conformity. Not people who are able to think for themselves in the midst of very, very strong groupthink, etc. But also not rebellious, so not thinking the opposite just to be different from everybody else. So true individual, able to stay true to their values, depending on what, despite what everybody else around them is doing. And just from the descriptions that I've read of Bhante's teachers, the individuality sort of in some cases verges on eccentricity, but there can be no doubt from the descriptions as well about their spiritual depth and their real kindness. So it sort of demonstrated to me the teaching of individuality. So Jagdish Kashyap, as I said, he was a Pali scholar. He was the Indian teacher, the one Indian teacher, and he was so fat that he never walked. So he was a very, very fat man, and he paid the rickshawwala double fare because of his weight. So this is Bhante's root teacher, and he was very humble and very unassuming, to the extent that I don't know what he would have made of Bhante's sort of saying, I'm going to do whatever you say, because he would consult with Bhante all the time about what decisions to do next. So he was very humble, very unassuming. Apparently he could work day and night if he had something to work on. He would work through the night, all through the day. But if he didn't have anything to do, he would just sleep, and that would be through the night and the day as well. So Bhante was very scholarly and studying very, very hard, and he would go to Jagdish Kashyap with little knotty philosophical problems or a key point of Pali grammar questions about these things, and the door would be open and he would go in, and Jagdish Kashyap would be on his string bed. He would be sound asleep, and Bhante would sort of say his question. Let's see if I got the description of the communication that would happen. So here we go. On my coughing or murmuring Bhante, a single eyelid would twitch, whereupon I would put my question, which I had not been able to unravel myself. Without opening his eyes and without moving, Kashyapji would proceed to clear up the difficulty, heaving the words up from the depths of his enormous frame and rolling them around on his tongue before releasing them in slow, deliberate utterance. Sometimes he rumbled on for only a few minutes, sometimes for half an hour. Whatever he said was clear, precise, and to the point. If I asked about a particular passage of text, he always knew whereabouts it came, what had come before, and what followed. Yet all the time he hardly bothered to wake up. As I returned to my room, I would hear behind me a sigh and a snore, and before I'd settled down at my table, Kashyapji would be sound asleep again. So during this time in Kalimpong, many Tibetans were being forced to flee Tibet. So it turned out to be very, very fortunate in terms of the spread of the Dharma to the West. And particularly, so many Westerners were also around, spiritual explorers were also around those parts, looking for teachers, etc. And Bhante was able to meet people that he would never have met. So very renowned lamas, very, very highly respected people in their different lineages, Tibetan lineages. Yeah, and maybe I'll say yes. So he met teachers, and within the Tibetan tradition he was also given initiation. So this is partly why he considers these teachers these men his teachers, because they were able to pass on initiations, and some of those initiations are the figures also on the Refuge Tree, the archetypal figures to our left of the Buddha. You can see one Manjushri with his flaming sword. So these figures are objects of meditation in themselves, and they will pass on to Bhante. And the teachers that he met were, so Jagdish Kashyap would have been, his foundation would have been in Theravada tradition, and although he later learned a lot about the Mahayana. And then there were tantric teachers, and also, so what we have here is unique in that we've got teachers from all of the eras of history in Buddhism, all on the same refuge tree. So I don't think any other Buddhist tradition actually has this. So we've got the Theravada are the sort of keepers of early Buddhism, the sort of protectors of the Pali Canon, the words of the Buddha. We've got Mahayana, which is a sort of later Indian flowering or a sort of a later Buddhist culture, and then that transformed into the Vajrayana, which was particularly it had flowerings in Tibet and also in different other traditions. But this refuge tree, in a way, represents all of the traditions that we have access to, and they've come through these people. Then maybe I'll say something now about some of the other teachers, if I find my. So the Chinese teacher, he was called Yogi Chen, and perhaps I'll say this about all of the teachers, is that they led extremely disciplined spiritual lives from young ages. So many of them in childhood would have shown an interest in the spiritual life. Certainly from teenage years, all of them. So that meant getting up while it was still dark, performing certain rituals, meditating, etc. The kind of lives that we can't really imagine leading. And Yogi Chen was a great meditator, and he would spend all day meditating. He was in a hermitage in Kalimpong. He would spend all day meditating, and he spent half an hour of each day not meditating, doing his correspondences and writing. He must have also found time to teach Bhante and his friend, because they would go round and he would give these discourses. And he was giving a talk, and the talk would last, it was one talk, and they'd go back every week for another instalment of the talk. So that's something. There's Yogi Chen. There was Chetal Sangye Dorje, and he was a Nyingma Tibetan Buddhist who Bhante describes as a strange and mysterious character. And I think he is the one who lived the longest apart from Bhante. So, so some people in our order will have also had a chance to meet him. Yeah, a strange and mysterious character. And he would have visions. He predicted that Bhante would own his own vihara before Bhante had any money, and that came to be. You could never find where he was. He would just walk off. He resisted all kind of structure and bureaucracy. So he was very, very kind and very, very communicative, but only if you could find him. Yeah. Cathy Rinpoche was also a visionary, and he really acted on his visions. And Bhante found that he was a really very true friend. He gave him the Padmasambhava practice. He, opposed to many of the others who were very gracious, he was a very rough and ready person, but very devotional. Dujom Rinpoche, from a very young age, spiritually gifted, had a penchant for Hawaiian shirts, apparently. So he could be in all his Tibetan regalia, or in a Hawaiian shirt with dollars sticking out of the top pocket. But that would indicate that he was a charlatan, but he certainly wasn't. And being around him, Bhante experienced peace in the deepest sense, a sense of peace like an ocean. So that's the metaphor that he used for Dujom Rinpoche, as being like an ocean. But when he was around people, he took absolute delight in being alive. So it was like this depth of water, but with a sort of sparkling surface. Dilgo Quincy Rinpoche, he's very famous. Some of these guys came and lived in the West and ended up spending their final years in the West. Dilgo Quincy Rinpoche, you can find out about him. There's a film called Brilliant Moon. When he was 16 years old, he went on a 7-year retreat. On that retreat, he sat in a box and meditated. His brother was leading the retreat and had to force Dilgo Quincy Rinpoche to go out and stretch his legs to not damage his legs. But he had no inclination to do that. He just wanted to sit and meditate. When Bhante said goodbye to him, he was going to move to the West. Bhante was coming back to the UK. Dilgo Quincy Rinpoche and his wife were living in huge poverty. They wanted to give him a present. They didn't have anything. They had one object, and it was a knife, and they decided to give Bhante the knife as just a kitchen knife because they so much wanted to give a gift. Dado Rinpoche, so some of you have been to Vajrasana and you'll know that we have some of his relics there. So he was the character, he was the teacher that Bhante also considered to be a spiritual friend. They somehow had an extra rapport which perhaps wasn't in relation with the other teachers. So Dado Rinpoche was also a man of huge kindness and energy, and he set up a school for Tibetans, which many people will have been to visit who are senior to me in our movement. And finally, just to say that there was Jamyang Khyentse Rinpoche, and the important quality that he imparted to Bhante was non-sectarian attitude to practice. So one of the things that could happen in the Tibetan movement was that there were lots of schools and sub-schools and kind of almost sectarian. And what Jamyang Khyentse Rinpoche wanted to do was unify the Tibetan tradition and so would speak to other spiritual teachers in other traditions in Tibet, and try and bring it together rather than this kind of I don't know what you call it, slightly defensive attitude about one's own practices. So when Bhante met these teachers, he had studied already quite a lot. He'd already written, when he'd met some of the teachers, he'd already written a book, a very, very dense book called The Survey of Buddhism. So he had a lot of knowledge. And this is why he was asked, and when he responded about what he got from the teachers, if he'd studied so hard, he'd read an enormous amount, and that was the answer, that the response that I read at the beginning, in that he looked to how they were. It was their kindness, how they manifested, their endless positive response to the devout followers that each of them had. Which I've got a few things to say before the end of the class to try and draw out. Well, the Dharma is caught, this little phrase, the Dharma is caught, not taught. So we can, I guess the danger is if we don't meet other people who exemplify our values, we don't know how much we're absorbing them ourselves. We read about them, we think we understand them, but are we really embodying them, or is it just a nice idea? And I think my own experience around people who've been practicing the Dharma longer than me is that they have a sort of grace and depth of experience that also spurs me on. Yeah, so it seems desirable to want to be like them. It's attractive. Those people are attractive, much more. So it's much more attractive being around somebody who is profoundly kind and patient with people that they meet than reading about kindness and patience. You know, like you can buy T-shirts these days, mugs with the word kindness on. And it's like, yeah, great. We all want to be kind, but what's it like to be around somebody who has no limit to that kindness, that ocean-like depth to their kindness? It makes a sort of mockery of the word kind in a way, or in the way that we usually use it, or another way to think about it is it fills out what kindness actually means. I can't remember which teacher it was meditating in a cave. I think it might have been, no, I can't remember. And as he came out, there was a cobra with its hood up, it blocking the exit, and he said that tested his practice of metta. It just reminded me of that when I was just mentioning kindness. So there are wonderful teachers around, that Bhante met wonderful teachers. But I just want to sort of draw out what makes a really, really good teacher. And I think it's their depth of understanding, it's their willingness to engage, but also there has to be someone to teach. So you have to have something to teach, and there has to be people to teach. So in a way, we have to be willing to be taught. And I think Bhante exemplified that in his precept to surrender to his teacher. One of the things that Bhante says about spiritual friends and teachers is that we can please them. So we can try and please our spiritual friends, and we can try and please our teachers. And why would we do that? Well, he draws out is that what's happening is a sense of communication, that we need to be trying to communicate at the deepest we can. And if you have a spiritual friend or a teacher and you're cross with them, or I don't know, you're not really looking out for them, it's much, much harder for them to communicate than if you do something not to gratify their ego, but to show that you're receptive. So this sense of receptivity and pleasing teachers. And I'm not, I suddenly realise I'm teaching a class. I'm not talking about this. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about how, what I want to say, like an attitude that we need, that in order to grow, an attitude that we need to have, that there are people, like I said, people who are further along the path, that we can become more like. We need to, the practice is a sense of receptivity, and one way to be receptive is to give, to do things for someone who we admire, to create a channel of communication. Does that make sense? I suddenly felt like I was talking a bit of like it was a bit corny or something. But I think it's really it's really interesting how that works, and ideally that happens in relation to real people. But of course, now I'm talking about the people who are all dead. I met Bhante a couple of times when I was younger. I was so self-conscious. I remember the meetings. I was very, very self-conscious. Those times I sort of wasn't spiritually mature enough even to be a good disciple. I was very polite and everything, but I think now I would hope that I would be able to make a bit more of that meeting. I don't sort of regret it. I'm very grateful to have met him, and he was very, very kind to me in those meetings, just short meetings. Went to visit him when he was living in Birmingham. Well, recently I was on a solitary retreat and I had a picture of Bhante. And I was practicing more intensively. I was meditating. I could see what questions I had around my meditation, reflecting on the direction of my life. I could see what questions I had about the direction of my life, and those questions felt very, very strong and very clear. And as I was meditating and sitting at my shrine, I just felt like I'm just going to make lots of offerings. So I just made lots of incense offerings in a way to create a sense of communication. And it was just to a photo. It was an image of Bhante. A sense, and it was satisfying to do that. It felt like a way of opening up to something unknown. It was satisfying to do that. And it's said that even praising a Buddha allows a Buddha to reveal himself. So it's something about how I don't even understand what that means. I don't understand what that means, but I feel like it's related to this. Like, how can we be in relation to people who we respect and admire? Yeah. One thing that is challenging for us as well is to even think: can I even open up to the fact that there is such thing as spiritual growth? And the implication of that is that there are people who are further along the path than I am. So one of the challenges is there is a view, a sort of view, or I don't quite know how to put this. It can be really challenging for our ego, and this is also prevalent in our society, to think of anyone being more worthy of respect than other people. or ourselves. So there can be strong egalitarian tendencies for obvious reasons. Thinking about the history of terrible things that happened in the 20th century, and not wanting to follow leaders, and not wanting the things that we looked up to failed us. So then there's a sense that we might not want to look up to anyone. I remember teaching a drawing class, and I was referring to the masters. I was talking about Rembrandt and some various other teachers, and I was calling them masters. And someone said, "Oh yeah, I don't believe in masters," which was a shame for her, because she felt that that it meant that she couldn't look up to something that was extraordinarily more superior to any of the drawings that any of us were doing in that class. So it can be challenging for us to have the view that there are things that we want to look up to, but how wonderful, because it creates space for growth. It means that we can that rather than keeping us fixed in our place, a spiritual hierarchy, which is what I'm actually talking about. The word hierarchy can send shivers down people's spines, but it's not about fixing us in our place, but allowing us space to move, and for us to make progress, for us to move along, to grow. But in order to do that, we have to be aware that there are people, luckily, who embody, this is Bhante's phrase, embody reality to a higher degree than we do. So that's quite a nice description of spiritual growth, is embodying reality more and more. Yeah. Bhante talks about the Refuge Tree, or of the teachers on the Refuge Tree, as channeling currents of energy like rivulets, and each of the teachers will have had more than one teacher, so it's not exactly direct, but these rivulets of spiritual practice and energy flow down from teacher to teacher, and the lineage will be an unbroken one. It will always be direct in relation to other teachers, and these many rivulets join together to form a great river. And that great river, if we can partake in that great river, is a living spiritual reality. So there's another image of the Refuge Tree, where Bhante in the foreground is holding a caser. So that's one of these, and it's like he's about to ordain somebody. So those of us who make a lifelong commitment to this particular Buddhist order, Triratna Buddhist order, it's known as ordination. That's when we're given our Buddhist names by our preceptors, and that's the passing on of the lineage of inspiration. That's where we get to really, really fully partake in that lineage, to be the recipients of people who embody reality more than us. It's not the only way, but that's the most wholehearted, committed way to do it. We did try to get that image so that you could see the passing on of the case. We haven't managed to get the image for you, but you can perhaps imagine it, and I think it might be the one that's people are watching online. I'm not sure. No, okay, I'm told not. Well, if you ever go to Adhisthana, that's the painting there has that image. Yeah. Just to see what else I want to say, if anything. think I'll leave it there, because of how I would like us to end the evening. I want to end the evening ritually. So one of the first practices that Bhante was given was the green Tara figure, sadhana, which is a meditation practice, on the figure of green Tara, who is Bodhisattva figure. She's sitting. Yeah, there she is. She's embodiment of compassion. And she was given to Bhante by Chetal Sangye Dorje and one other person who I can't remember which one it is now. And he practiced that practice for many, many years. What I thought we could do was we'll finish the evening by chanting the Green Tara mantra. So as we do that, we're partaking in this lineage. We're partaking in the Buddhist tradition, but also we can do the mantra and make offerings at the shrine, so there's incense there, and just kind of call upon this image of growth. Just kind of feel into the feeling of the refuge tree, of potential, your own growth, the growth of other human beings. So that's the space we're creating. These figures, however you relate to them, many of them you won't know who they are. But that's okay. They're there to encourage us, and we need encouragement. Otherwise, we don't know where we're going. Like Annie said in the beginning, we need guides. So let's just kind of feel that pull from them, and if we can, and when you're making the offering, the incense offering, just really kind of really feel like it is an offering. So just make sure that you do it thoughtfully. You're giving something that it's nice to receive. Yeah, you're giving something that's nice to receive. Or sending this perfume throughout the shrine room up into, let's say, the blue sky. And who knows what might happen. So we're going to finish the evening in this ritual way. And I'll dim the lights. So we just sit quietly, and then whenever Satchidasa's ready, we'll start with Green Tara mantra. He'll say it twice. He'll say the mantra twice, and then we'll join in. So that's the end of the evening. Thanks for coming, and thanks for everyone online for watching. So hopefully see you next week for the next one in the series, which I don't know what it is, but it's you. It's Satchidasa, and he's going to be teaching the Arahants and the Bodhisattvas.
Yep.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So if you don't mind putting the cushions and mats away.